Welcome back to our interview, part 2 with Riverman goaltender Eric Levine. Eric, when we were last talking at the end of part 1, you were talking a lot about how it was kind of like a mentorship process with a lot of other goaltenders. I believe you had 4 or 5 other partners with the Rivermen last year, and kind of helping those guys. It was less more of a, oh, I hope they don't take my job, I got to keep my job. It's more, I want to mentor these guys and make sure they're ready to go when that happens. How is that similar to your teaching style with your goaltender camps that you work on in the summers?
Yeah, it's really similar. I mean, I looked at myself as, okay, I'm a goalie on this team and I'm doing my thing, but I also want to take on the role of trying to be a goalie coach for not only myself, but for whoever I was with, right? And Churchfield and I, during the first 2 months of the season, right, we were watching video with Guy regularly, and it was so cool to be able to talk about his game, right? To look at his game, go over the clips, and just to say, hey, this is what I think I would have done in this spot. This is where I think your game is at its strongest. So, like, let's work on things with you. It was cool because if you look at the goalies we had between Churchfield and Boyko and Benson and Barry, I don't know if you can get 4 different goalies, right? It's like all 4 guys were super unique, very individual in their style. So it was really cool. It was fun for me to try to say, okay, with Churchfield to start, I kind of got to know his game pretty quick. So I knew what his strengths were. So I would try to give him advice, or we would just talk about things that had a lot of impact for him. Boyko was a much smaller, more athletic, a lot more of an aggressive goalie. So for him, I would try to say, okay, I want, not that I want, but I hope that you can learn about play reading and about anticipation, because for those things, that's going to be super important for you because you're athletic and quick, but you need to learn how to read the play better because you're going to have to move around a lot more because you're a lot more aggressive. You're way outside the top of the crease, which means you have a lot more of the net to cover because you're giving up more on the backside. So learning how to like read situations and know if there's a pass option, and just to know that you have to anticipate where the puck's going to go, it would help him more than someone like Churchfield or Barry, because we're more about our position and we're less about reading the play and more about setting ourselves up into the technique that we want when the puck hits us. So it was cool to see the different guys and kind of how they were in practice, how they played. And I mean, a lot of times it was more stuff that we talk about in between periods, not necessarily technical things, but just about approach to the games. I mean, I remember having a conversation with Churchfield on the bus after like one of our trips from Evansville. We have the 5 hours back, and he had a tough game. I think he got pulled, and he was just really upset. And it was just more of a conversation about, man, this is part of the journey. This is what happens during a season. There's extreme ups and downs. Goalies tend to take on the record of the team more personally. So like we're really riding with the wins. We're really riding with the losses. They have more of an effect because we're attached more to the result. And it's easy to get, caught up into thinking that you're just it's easy to talk yourself out of being a good goalie, right? It's easy to lose your confidence, and it's way harder to like just to gain it. So trying to figure out ways where I can say, hey, I've been through this and I know how easy it is for the negative self-talk to start to come. But
Mhm.
this is the point where you have to stop it here and realize that it's about pushing forward, and you got to learn to like let the bad games go. And so it was things like that I really enjoyed, because it's more just getting to know the guys and trying to encourage them to stay with it, because they're inevitably going to have ups and downs, but it's more your mentality throughout the season than it is your technical play. So yeah, I enjoyed that role, and like all 4 guys I had, great goalie partners, and like it's no shock that they went on to be super successful in kind of all the spots that they ended up at, because they deserve it. They're really good goalies.
It's also no shock that as multifaceted as you are, you gain an interesting perspective of the game from the goaltending position. And I know a lot of folks mentioned that was on display when you took a turn in the booth as a guest commentator when we were on the road in Fayetteville. I think you were actually suspended for that game, weren't you? Yeah.
Got my one and only suspension. Yeah. Tomahawk to the back.
No comment on that one. But the fact is, so many people talking to me and saying, "Oh my goodness, Erica did such a great job." How would you? Because I know everyone's their harshest critic. How would you grade your first turn behind the mic in the booth? Was it everything that you thought it was?
I'll say this. it was way more fun than I thought. I really enjoyed doing it with you, right? Because I think I told you this, and I'll embarrass you here, but I think you have such a professional approach, and I think you have such a great like aptitude for calling the flow of the game. Because I told you my parents have listened to broadcasts from every different broadcaster, and they always say their top two. The guy in Newfoundland was incredible. And then you, because like they can listen to the game and they can understand what's happening. It's not just like all of a sudden the puck's in my end and my dad's like, how did it get there? Where is it? You tell the story of the game and you have a good flow, so it's so easy to follow. So it was cool to kind of see that happen. And I feel like I enjoyed adding the little additives. I didn't want to be the guy that was calling the play. The
Mhm.
passes here, goes there, does this. I liked adding in the tidbits of like, all right, this has just happened. This shift was important to the game because, or this is the adjustment that this team is making
Mhm.
because as a goalie, right, you're getting that insight and just being a player, right, you kind of understand how the ebbs and flows of the game and you understand like what's happening in a bigger picture, right? There's 10 players, they're doing their thing, but what is the team trying to do as a whole this game, right? Guy always said it, every game has a story. So I think, pretty good at figuring out what the story was of that game and then trying to relay that information and say, this is why this team is doing this, right? This is the reason behind whether it was a change of the forecheck, a change to the structure, or if it was something more of like a momentum gainer, right? Why is this fight happening? Is it purely because it was retaliation? Is it for momentum? Why was this save important? Like, what does that one save mean to the team? How can that save be a catalyst for what the team needed at that time? Why is this player who's maybe has been getting less ice time the last 2 weeks and he's finally getting a chance and he's playing well? Like, why is that important to the morale? Because he's such a great guy. And now the team is inspired by someone who they know because teammates know when guys are struggling.
Right.
So why, if this guy's been struggling for 2 weeks and now all of a sudden he's on the power play, maybe he scored a big goal. Like, what does that do for the momentum in the room? Because it's adding those insights that I think make it interesting to listen to because that's what I would want to hear if I'm tuning into a game. So it was fun to call it because you're so good at the play calling and at describing the X's and O's and like what's happening. And it was fun to interject into my opinions about kind of more what's going on behind the surface layer.
Well, I was very thankful that you were available to help out because I was sicker than a dog that week, and I think I had food poisoning when I was getting
Yeah, I think you went
chills.
through half a bag of throat lozenges.
Yes, half a bag of throat lozenges, and Fayetteville's building is very cold. So for someone who's sick and is getting chills, like I don't know, I don't even remember how many layers I had just trying to stay warm. But the two points of that broadcast that really stick out and that really I think highlight your ability as a color commentator to look at, understand, analyze, and tell the audience, hey, this is why this is important to the game. 2 points. One, it was before I think the second period, guys are lining up, and you're pointing out, it's like, oh, we're gonna have a fight right off the bat. And then sure enough, Mitch McPherson and J.M. Pietrowski, I believe it was, both go at it right off the bat. I'm like, well, you called it. And you
Yeah.
were able to analyze and tell, yep, this is why it was happening. Coach Gee probably said something in the locker room. He wants to get his guys going after a tough first period because that was, I think, the first period that Peoria was down either 3-0 or 2-0.
2-0. And I mean, that was more just like I know the character that Mitch and JM have, and like those guys are so important to our team, not just because of like what they do on the ice, but because they are in tune with the energy of the room and they know what they can bring to sort of change, right? They can change the momentum of a game in a lot of ways. And Mitch has been around long enough, and JM is like one of the most fearless players of like, he doesn't care if he has to fight, hit, score, back check. Like those guys are like, all right, we need to make a change. And when I saw just Mitch like line up and just like how he's looking at the guy, I was like, yeah, he's going with him. And sure enough, right? Like what happened? We get the momentum turned around, we come back and we win that game. And it's just like that game doesn't get won if that doesn't happen. And it's the veteran leadership of guys like that understand that that story of that night needed to be changed into our favor by a certain way. And those guys were just, they're fearless enough to do it. So it was so cool to know what was happening. And then you see it, kind of unfold. It's like a little bit cheating because I have a lot of behind the scenes information. But
Cheating?
it's
Come
still
on.
like, it's just like, hey man, this is how hockey is. And like people that watch hockey and are critical don't always know the full story. And I think when guys get, they don't really appreciate what guys bring to the table, right? For someone like Mitch, who is, maybe they only know that his points are this, or that he had a lot of goals, but but no assists. Why isn't he getting assists? Well, his role is so many things. He has to wear a lot of different hats, and he was so good at knowing which game he needed to be which version of Mitch McPherson, and he's so adaptable and dynamic that he's in tune to say, this is what my team needs this period, and I'm going to bring it. And he never cared once if he got a hat trick, scored, or had 0 points. Like he was going to make an impact. Most nights he was pretty good at that.
The other story of that game that you point out, again, this is, I think, one of the reasons why you do such a good job, or at least maybe we do work well together. I don't know. It could be that, is that Alec Hagman, he was sat for a good portion, I believe, of the third period, second or third period. And then first shift up, I think you said it, both our ears perked up. It's like, oh, Hags is finally back out on the ice, gets a lead pass, breakaway, scores, and that ends up being the game winner. And then, I mean, I'm describing it in the news, like, I think our ears perked up when Hagman first got back on the ice. He hasn't seen a shift since whenever it was. He gets it back, and then all of a sudden he scores. And you talked about that, and as you said, it's those little stories, those little tidbits that folks who are critical of the game of hockey and watch the game of hockey, they don't even pick up on that all the time.
Yeah, two things with that. One, you have to appreciate that that is a good coaching move, because think about putting yourself in the coach's point of view, right? You have Alec Hagman on your team, SPHL legend, like one of the best players. How do you not just throw him out every shift, right? He's kind of like a Connor McDavid who just plays. Well, you have to understand that you have to know Alec Hagman as the person and know how he operates. You have to know what motivates him. You have to know when he's at his best and what he needs in different situations to get the best out of him, right? He's an older guy and he's been around. He was battling some injuries last year. You have to appreciate the situation that Guy says, in this moment, I need to sit Alec Hagman because I have other guys going. I need Alec to think about certain things. I need him to be motivated in a way. It's either the carrot or the stick, because I know when I play him, it's like I'm playing him. He's my card, but I got to use him at the right time. Because if you overplay a guy, you kind of get lost in some of that coaching philosophy. And so like Guy was knowing that in that moment, yes, you should play Alec Hagman. He should be out there every other shift. He's a beast. He's in great shape. He dominates, but he also wasn't playing great, made a couple mistakes. And then the message that that sends to the rest of the team is as important as what it does to the individual player. So he got the best out of his team by sitting the Hags, and then he kind of riles them up a little bit, unleashes him, plays his cards at the perfect moment. He ends up scoring, and it's just like, that's coaching. And that's why people that watch the game and are critical that have never played, I always say it's way different when you're on the bench and you see why things are done, and you followed our team for 2 years and you got to see a lot of the strategies that Guy has. You don't have 4 lines in the SP. You only got 10 forwards, right? So being able to use your 10 forwards in a certain way and being able to use your 6 D man, it's a puzzle. And every night you're trying to figure out what are the best pieces and when to play those pieces. And like, that's why Guy's one of the best coaches. That's why he wins with every single team he has. Different players, it doesn't matter. He understands the story of the game. He knows what puzzle pieces he has, and he understands how to play them.
It's that insight that I really hope we can get you down here for a couple games, man, to get you back in the booth. Because I tell you what, your insight not only into Coach Trudell and how the organization, this team operates, but the game in general is just such an asset. If not here, somewhere else, man. I've said it before, I'll say it again. You've got broadcasting in your future, my friend, if you ever wanted to pursue it.
Yeah, once those pension checks come in, I'd be happy to come down there, start calling some games.
I'll get on. I'll work that up the chain. Last question, Eric, because I know this is going to be a long one. We only got 4 minutes left before they're going to kick us off. John Gee talks a lot about legacy. What do you think or hope your legacy is here in Peoria?
It's to be part of a team that had brought a championship to Peoria. We had so many successful seasons, and like all the wins that we accumulated, over the time I was there, to have a lot of those finish first in the league. You have a lot of personal stats, but to like look up and say that there's a championship banner that I was a very small part of, like that legacy to me is more important, because it means that every guy that was on that team and all the front office people and everyone, yourself, whoever was included in that, should take a lot of confidence into whatever their next venture is in life, because they understand what it means to put time into an organization, to be loyal, to work hard, to persevere through a lot of different adversities, and to ultimately say we achieved our goal. And when it mattered most, like, we showed up and we got the job done. And everyone had their different way of contributing that season, that playoff run, that final game. So just to say in 20 years, to hopefully when Peoria is still playing and I can bring my kids and say, hey, I was a very small part of that. That's a cool legacy to have, because I'm so lucky that I had the opportunity to be on this team, to win a championship, and it's just to forever be linked with a great group of coaches, players, staff. It's just the most humbling thing. So for me, it's definitely the championship banner. That'll be the biggest legacy.
A man whose legacy will be hanging here in Carver Arena forever. Eric, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to come talk to us. Wish you nothing but the best in this new stage, in this next chapter of your life. All the best to you, your family, your fiance, Ann, and everyone in the Levine family. Look forward to seeing you back here at Carver Arena, maybe for a guest cameo appearance on the mic.
Opening night, I'll be there.
There you go.
I wouldn't miss it for the world.
Let's do it, brother. Have a great summer, Eric. Thanks so much. Talk to you soon.